Supernova with me, Amy Canavan, a state of mind's dedicated football chat show. Today I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Graeme Colmer. Graeme, how are you doing? Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I'm doing good, thanks very much.
Doing alright?
Doing away, yeah. Good to get out and about again.
Exactly. You just had a wee one, so congratulations on
Yeah, I've got a 3-week-old at home, a wee boy Jude, so it's, as you can probably tell by my eyes, I'm a bit tired.
So this is the last thing you certainly want to do with all these bright lights.
The coffee's helping, I'm not going to lie, it's been helpful, so yeah, but going good, just getting used to it, but we'll get there.
So how have you found lockdown then, obviously, at the end of it, you had this baby, that's
I think the difference between the two was quite, I think the first lockdown it was all new, and the weather was nice, you could get out nice walks and stuff, and then over Christmas time, New Year, it was quite tough with the dark nights and the poor weather, I wasn't able to get out as much. The only saving grace this time is the first time round I was on furlough, so I wasn't working. It's just tough for me, somebody that's active all the time and out and about 6-7 days a week, to go into being stuck in the house 7 days a week. It was no good for anybody. So, but touch wood, we've been back now full time for a few weeks now, so it's been really good and enjoyable getting back out. So long may it continue.
Pascal Lakes, you're obviously active, and we'll get on to all the great work you're doing with the academy kids at Hearts. So, but when did it first start for you, the love for football? You know, what you're promoting now, what was that like when you were younger, playing on the streets?
For me, football was always recreational. It was never an aspiration to be a player or a professional. That was never going to happen. But football was always about enjoyment for me from a very young age. Whether it being getting taken to a football match with my dad and my grandpa, who were both big Dunfermline fans, still are, my dad in the family. But that's really where I fell in love with it. France '98 seems to be the first World Cup that I remember Zidane scoring and Ronaldo getting ill in the final and things like that. So it's always been a passion of mine from a very young age, and as I say, it was more a recreational, social thing, football. And when I stopped enjoying it, I stopped playing, and that was what happened at 16, and I drifted in and out of the years after it. But and then coaching kind of became a hobby, so that kind of took over. But from a very young age, football's been about enjoyment, about socialising, about having fun, and being the best part of the week. We always talk about that when we're taking session, be the best part of kids' weeks. And that's really been a mantra of mine since a young age, probably. So, yeah, that's really where it came from. Fond memories of going playing at the local pitch where I stayed in a village just outside Dunfermline, and it was a big grass area with one set of goals and no nets, no nothing, so one ball and just play. And that was really my earliest memories of football, I know.
Is that what you try and push now, obviously, that at the end of the day football should be for children, just all purely about enjoyment? I
think it's got to be one of the most important things, yeah. I mean, kids play football, people play football for different reasons, like anything. They'll play because they enjoy it, they play because they're good at it, they play maybe because their parents push them to do it. So there's a variety of different reasons why kids play, but I don't think we should ever forget that first and foremost that you've got to create an environment for them where they enjoy it and they want to come back next week. Because if they're not enjoying it, they'll get sick of it. I used to do swimming when I was younger. I always use this example, and I was pretty good at it. My dad and my mum weren't pushy for me to do it, but I got the impression they were. And it was only when I was older I realised that wasn't the case. But they pushed me into competitions and they pushed me into extra sessions, and I went along, and I eventually just started, I don't want to do this anymore, I want to play football with my pals, and I just stopped doing it, and I regret it now, but back then I just thought I didn't want to do it anymore. So I think the enjoyment went out for me for that, and football was providing that entertainment, that enjoyment. So of course when I'm delivering sessions, that's the first thing I think of. The kids enjoying it, they're going to come back, and especially in an academy environment that sometimes gets overlooked. It's about developing players for a first team, but they're still 10-year-old kids at the end of the day, aren't they? So they've got to be having fun and enjoying it. So it is the base of everything I do.
Talk about that drifting out and drifting in period before you got into the coaching. What pulled you back to football during that time?
It's a good question. I stopped playing with 16, and I just had enough because I was going to college, school had finished. You get that, I don't know about yourself, but you get that period when you finish school in like the May time in between August, and you just don't care what's happening. You just are in the limbo. And so I stopped playing over the summer, went back later in the year, and I was just drifting in it. I just wasn't enjoying it, and with work and college and eventually university as well, I just didn't have time. But I always enjoyed, regardless if I wasn't enjoying playing, I always enjoyed watching football. So whether it been going to a game or watching football on the telly, I've always enjoyed that, and I've never lost that passion. But being involved in playing football is a big commitment, especially as you get older. And if it is just recreational, teams fold in and things like that, it becomes less enjoyable and not a great environment to play. So, but my love of football will always be there. I think I'll be a 75-year-old man still loving football. So fingers crossed anyway. But yeah.
Are the plans for coaching always in place then?
No. Sometimes I think it was by accident. Sometimes I think it was a mixture of things that happened that led to that. 14, 15, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I still remember, I talked to my dad about this the other week actually. I got the college, the books you used to get and decide what you were going to do, and I remember ticking about, I think it was lawyer and accountant and all that, because you saw the pound signs.
Yeah.
But unfortunately I wasn't clever enough to do that. So I spoke to my guidance teacher, and it was always like, pick something you're passionate about and enjoy, and sport was something I was passionate about. PE was my favourite subject. The PE teachers I had were huge influences on me, one of which I went on to work with later on in my career. But I went to college with thinking I'll be a PE teacher, I'll get my HNC or HND, whatever it was, and go on to get my degree in my postgrad, and I'll have a cushy job by 21, and I'll be a PE teacher for the rest of my days, because it looks quite easy being a PE teacher. Hey, lots of school holidays, rock up at shots, but the coaching happened by accident. I started working my first year at college, doing a bit of coaching, because it was a sports coaching course I was doing. I didn't know there could be a career in coaching, to be honest with you. I'd never heard of anybody I knew anyway that had been a community coach or a football coach or a sports coach. But I started doing stuff with active schools, which did a lot of after school clubs and lunchtime clubs and holidays, like courses and stuff like that. And that was probably my first experience of being a coach. But again, I didn't really enjoy it. I didn't enjoy it. I couldn't think of anything worse than a group of 30 kids, at that time anyway, a group of 30 kids in a hall or a pitch, and I was horrible at it, and I never thought twice about doing it again. And it was only probably my last year, so my HNC, HND, so my second year, that I did a bit more football coaching, because the coaching I was doing at active schools was sports based. It was basketball and hockey, and I ended up just doing the same session, just a different sport. So if it was dribbling in and out of cone, I was doing that for football, basketball and hockey, and it was just horrible. But so yeah, I think it was at the end of my HND, I got a place onto the college, became part of the university, so I didn't have to do an extra year at college. I was basically skipping a year to go and get my degree, so it was only one more year, and I thought, well, I'll go and do that and then take it from there. Really forward planning, thinking at that age. And it was then I started doing a bit of coaching with clubs, like in the local area, grassroots clubs, and I enjoyed that. And then at the end of my degree, emailed every single club in Scotland and got 2 replies for a bit of summer work. They were Celtic and Hearts, funnily enough, and I did a bit of work with Celtic, and then that's where it kind of exploded and got to me where I am today. But it was a very, very long process, and I'm still not sure if I'm going to be a coach in 5 years' time. So I'm just enjoying it at the moment. So I'm going to keep at it, and I must be doing something right if I'm still doing it 10, 15 years later. So.
What was your time at Celtic like then?
Incredible. From the very start, it was one of these ones where I didn't know what was going to happen next, and I kind of like that. As you can probably tell, I don't think too far ahead. But to cut a long story short, I went for an interview, which was a pitch-based interview, just to deliver a session at one of their camps. It was on a Thursday. A guy called Hugh Houlihan, I think he's a kit man now actually, at Celtic. He invited me along, phoned me later on that day, says, "You've passed the thing, we're going to get you involved in the summer stuff." And I was like, "Oh, brilliant." So at that time I was just looking for summer work to tie me over until I figured out what I was going to do. And he phoned me again in the following morning and goes, "You fancy going to Ireland on Monday?" Or Sunday, sorry. I goes, "Aye, too right." So I went and did a camp in Dundalk, and that was my first thing. So I'd never coached in Scotland with Celtic or anything like that. It was just Dundalk in the middle of Ireland, middle of nowhere. And that was my first experience working with Celtic, and that was kind of how it went. I was never properly full time there. It was always ad hoc really. Some week I'd be 25 hours, some week I'd be 40 hours, some week I'd be 3 hours. and staying in Dunfermline, I was travelling back and forward, and I was there for 3-4 years, involved in a ton of programmes, and it was amazing because they're such a big club, obviously, and I was working with some great coaches, and it was real variety in what I'm doing. I think I really enjoyed that, and no day was the same. One day I'd be working with kids doing sort of the very early year stuff, and the next week I was doing football fans and training with 50, 60-year-old men. So I liked the variety that provided, and I just went with that for a few years. And I was very lucky to get that opportunity. I still to this day don't think I got that job because they wanted me. I think they needed somebody to do it, so because they didn't have somebody to go to Dundalk on the Monday, or the Sunday. But yeah, it was 3-4 great years I had there, so really enjoyable.
What coaches were you working with at that time?
So I think people you might know, Menson Hugh, he was here at the time. He was the coordinator, community coordinator. So he's now kit man. David Healy's now assistant manager at the women's team, I believe. I've seen him for a few years, but I believe he's there. John McStay, so Paul's nephew. Getting well with Paul. He's just had a wee one actually as well. So yeah, guys like that. Nobody in terms of you probably recognise in terms of names, but a lot of good people there. Learned a lot when I was there, good and bad. But yeah, so no, really enjoyable place to work as well. And some great opportunities I had. Which, if I can, I went across to Australia twice. Once to Australia, twice to America. Out to Ireland about 15 or 16 times doing the camps, some just for a week, some for 3-4 weeks. So 3 or 4 weeks in your early 20s in Ireland can be quite fun, especially at the weekends. So and I went to Kuwait of all places. I've still got no idea where that is, but I've been there, and that was unbelievable experience, just for a life experience. It was, as I say, I didn't know much about Kuwait. The first thing I remember is flying over Iraq when we were about to come in, and I'm going to be sure we're the right place here, because that was in the middle of obviously the war and stuff like that there. And I remember I was expecting to see desert. We were coming in, all you could see was sand, and all of a sudden you came to this place. It was just buildings and high-rise buildings and things like that. And I'm going, you sure we're at the right place here? And in one place you'd go, they'd be fluent in English, and then the next minute you'd be having to speak through a translator to somebody in Arabic. So it was a crazy experience. The hotel we stayed in had been bombed during the war, so there was old bombs that hadn't gone off in the museum in the hotel, and the photos of fighter jets flying over the hotel. So it was just an incredible life experience. Never mind football experience, just an incredible life experience. So yeah, so it took me around the world, which I'm thankful for. It was always a passion of mine to either go travelling or work abroad. So I kind of killed two birds with one stone. Getting an all-paid expensive trip around the world and getting paid for it, so I couldn't complain.
How much can you take from these experiences going forward? As you say, you know, the work you're doing now, but you're seeing what the setup's like in Kuwait, you're seeing what's like in America, wherever it may be. Every
place I've been to is different. Even when you go across the island, it's different to over here. In Ireland, football's not the first sport. Obviously, they've got the Gaelic sports over there. You go out to America again, they're probably, maybe it's a bit bigger now, football, but when I was across there, football wasn't, or soccer, as it's called over there, it's not even second or third sport. When you went to Australia, it was different in the regards that they were really keen and athletic, but they didn't have much technical ability compared to over here. So everywhere's been different. In Kuwait, we were going on pitches where there wasn't even grass on it, it was just like AstroTurf, but basically bobbles in it. Somebody's just laid it down and forgot to put it down properly, and it's holes missing and things like that, and it's middle of a derelict building site. So it was crazy. So everywhere's been different, and in terms of how it has affected my career today, I think I'm very good, I think, at reading groups and people and getting to know people, and I take great pride in getting to know somebody whether it's a kid I have once or whether it's a kid I have up at the academy for the foreseeable future. I take great pride in getting to know them and what makes them tick, and I think working with different cultures and different people, that's probably helped going forward. Especially in my job, I have to speak to a lot of adults. Even though I'm working with young players, I'm having to speak to parents, I'm having to speak to, if I'm out working with a club, I'm speaking to their coaches and their parents. So getting to know people is important, and building up relationships. So I probably learnt that through the experience of working abroad. And the people I worked with abroad or stayed with, families abroad, I still keep in touch with them. So you develop relationships with them for life. So it's great, even though you don't get to see them. But yeah, you still got that message at Christmas or Messenger or whatever it may be, or email. It's good. So I think building relationships with people is so key, especially when you're so far away from home. And being involved in football, sometimes you're 7 days a week, so the people you're spending time with at work is probably the people you spend the most time with. So building relationships is so important.
We're talking a lot right now about, in particular at Celtic, the academy set up and everything. You know, it's getting slated, that there's not the right development, that things aren't getting through. What do you say to that? Obviously, you've seen it a bit more firsthand, and obviously a few years from now.
Obviously, the Celtic side of thing, I wasn't very much involved in the academy. I helped more the community side, but I think across the board, I think academies get quite a bad rep in the media, and sometimes deservedly so, because at the end of the day, they're there to produce players for the first team, and when that happens, it's great, and the fans love it because they've got local boys in the first team, and the fans really like that. But when maybe a player doesn't come through, or it's been a couple of years since a player comes through, the fans get frustrated, and it's seen as an expense that it's not needed, and that money could have been spent on a player elsewhere. And I get that, but I've been involved in academy football now for just over 10 years, at varying clubs. There's talent out there, undoubtedly talent out there at any club, Celtic included, Hearts, or obviously Hearts in other clubs as well. We had played Aberdeen at the weekend there, and our first game's back, and both sets of teams were incredible. Talent, I mean, 10, 11-year-old boys we're talking about, but I'm thinking, boy, they're incredible. So it's a guessing game, because you can't look at a crystal ball 7 years down the line. You're going to get some decisions right, some decisions wrong, but ultimately it comes down to the player themselves, and when they get to that age at 15, 16, when they're going full time, then kicking on to impress the manager. It's all well and good getting through the academy and doing well and being safe, and getting to that point where you're at the academy, going into the first team, that you need to impress the manager who's going to pick you over a first team regular potentially, or a new signing. So, but it's a long process, and you're not going to produce players every single year. You'd love to, but I think the academy football, they need opportunities, and the talent is there. It's just opportunities and getting them games, whether that be at first team or going out on loan. They need to play football, and I think that's a big problem just now in Scotland, the gap between academy football and first team level.
So from your perspective, as we said, obviously it's a little bit younger, but do you think, we sort of say all the time, is there that market again to bring back almost like the reserves league?
I think so. I think good players need to play with adults or older players. I think even at our academy, we play players up to challenge them rather than keep them kind of comfortable at their own age. From time to time, we put them up. And I think it's the same when you get to 17, 18. If you're playing against 17, 18-year-olds, that's not going to prepare you for first team level, where you're playing against grown men who are going to be in 30s, they've got 400 games under their belt. It's not. We've tried under 20s, and we've tried under 23s, or England have done under 23s, we've done under 21 reserves. But I think it's got to be a balance between men's football and playing with players their own age, and I think we need to get back to that, because it's too big a jump. We've got players, obviously Hearts got the young boy from Finlay that's broke at the first team the last couple of weeks, 16-year-old. That's probably his first experience playing with men. He's thrown at the deep end in a first team game. Now he's managed that and coped with that, but for some players, if that was their first experience, they might crumble and they might not deal with it over time, and might fall down the pecking order or the ranks. So it's difficult. So they need to take experience playing against men at a young age, or older players anyway at a young age. And I think the setup needs that a wee bit more.
It's extremely topical right now, and obviously we're talking just a day after the announcement. What do you take from the Celtic and Rangers Colts possibly joining the lowland league? What do you say with that?
I can see both sides to it. I think they're obviously, Rangers and Celtic have sent a lot, and Hearts as well, to be fair, have sent a lot of young players out on loan. With varying degrees of success. Some have gone out on loan and done really well and kicked on. Some have found it really difficult being in an environment where, going especially to the part-time teams where they only train at nights and stuff like that, they've found that difficult and struggled and not kicked on from there. So I think having a Colts team would help these clubs kind of manage a bit better what's happening with the development of the young players. But I also see it from the point of view of the clubs playing in the lower leagues. do they want to be playing Colt team, or do they? It seems a bit of a shame for clubs like that they've got clubs down in the lowland league, got really progressive clubs. You know, Celtic, Hearts and Brora playing the other night that are capable of playing in the leagues. Do Rangers Celtic deserve to go on ahead of them? Probably not. I get the whole picture. We want to develop players for the national team and produce better players. I get that. So I'm sitting on the fence with that one, to be honest. But I can see both sides to the argument. But Scottish football is a competition at the end of the day, and if we put them into League One or lowland league or League Two, and they can't go up, then it's not a competition anymore. We spoke about the Super League the other week. It wasn't going to become no promotions or relegations. That's the same thing. But I certainly think that there is something to it. It's just how is the problem.
As I know, we will need to keep a close eye on over the coming weeks. So, drawn away. So, how does Celtic come to the end, and where do you progress from there?
I was staying in Dunfermline, and I was travelling through, and it was getting to the point where the work was, in terms of, I was never on a full-time contract, so I was always working, as you say, ad hoc or 0-hour contracts if you like, and some weeks I'd be working 15 hours, some week 25, some week 30, and I was getting to the point now, I was in my early 20s, and I was thinking, well, I need to get my own place, all my mates are earning money, they finish uni and earning money, and it becomes that, and I thought, you know what, I need to do something different. So I never really cut ties with them. I got put in touch with a guy called Stephen Wright, who was head of youth at Dunfermline, who's now up at Dundee. He was at Rangers as well, obviously played with Rangers and Aberdeen as a player, and he invited me into the academy, and I thought, you know what, it's 10 minutes from the house, I'm maybe not earning as much money, but it's opportunities to go and work in the community side of things at the club as well, and that's what I did. Initially coming in with the older age groups, which I hated, and I've never worked at an older age group again. It's just not for me. It's not my skill set. My skill set is working with younger players, and I'm not ashamed to admit that. I know where my strengths and my weaknesses are, and my strengths working with younger players. So after 6 months, I went and worked with the under-11s with my PE teacher, who I spoke about earlier, Dougie Coulston, who's probably been the biggest influence on my career. I'm still scared of him to this day, but he's in all seriousness, he was my PE teacher in first year, got on really well with him, and then I was working with him, which was strange at first, calling him Dougie rather than calling him Mr. Coulston or something like that. And Dougie's quite old school. His dad was a coach as well, Frank, but his knowledge of the game and coaching young players was second to none that I've worked with, and I learnt so much from him. I learnt good things, and I learnt things that I would do differently, and that's really where I think I kicked on as a coach. So I worked under him for 2 years, taking under 11s, and then got the opportunity to go and take the under 12s and own, and I seen that as a kind of thing that he'd go on you go sort of thing, and I've no looked back. So he was a huge influence on my career, and that's led to a full-time job at Dunfermline, working similar to what I'm doing just now in terms of community side of things and in the academy. And after that I went to the SFA for about 18 months, but I'm not one for sitting behind a desk, and I prefer to be out on the pitch and moving about and talking to people and stuff, and sitting behind a computer putting numbers into a computer is no for me, and that's where I am today, back at Hearts. So really enjoying it. It's now 3.5 years since I've been at Hearts, so just been made a permanent contract as well, which during the lockdown was a bit of a surprise, but I'll take it. So, and I get the best of both worlds, because I get the passion of the grassroots side of the game, which where it started for me, and I'm still really passionate about, and I also get to do the academy side of things, where I love that challenge, and that's where I find it difficult in that environment, and I'm not scared to say that. It's a challenge for me to put on a session for some of the best players in the country, but it's a great challenge to have, and it's really testing, and I'm saying we've been back in about a month now, and it's been great, and I'm looking forward to it, and I'm buzzing to be on the pitch, and that's what work should be for me. It's not work, it's a joy to do. So yeah, so that's kind of where I've come from after leaving Celtic. It was kind of a whirlwind 3 or 4 years, 5 years, where I jumped about a couple of different jobs until I was settled, and I feel really settled now, which I think is important.
Just touching back on, what was your role when you were at the SFA?
It was assistant development officer, football development officer. So each region's got development officers, and and I was working with guys, Lee Bailey, who used to play with Hibs, and Davy Honeyman, and two great guys, and especially Lee, I got on really well with him. But half my hours were basically admin, basically putting the stats in, how many kids I've attended this session and putting them in, and the other half was out on the pitch, and I really enjoyed the half when I was on the pitch, and the other half I despised. I know there's going to be elements of jobs you don't like, there'll be elements of your job you don't like where you're under the sun, you don't know what to do, but if I'm at a desk for any longer than 2 hours, my head's somewhere else, and I'm probably not doing a good job if that's the case. So yeah, I was working on the pitch stuff. It was working with young kids in schools. It working with they've got their sort of performance academy, which is kind of a go between grassroots and proper academy football. Extra training for them, if you like, and working with grassroots clubs, similar to what I'm doing just now. So, to say the football side of it was fun, just putting in numbers and typing into the computer wasn't for me, which thankfully in this job, touch wood, I don't need to do too much of.
Touched on it before, the gaps really in Scottish football in the academy and grassroots. When you went to the SFA, did you feel that there was an opportunity there for you to try and bridge it, or?
Personally, no, because the SFA are kind of, I wasn't high enough to have any say or anything like that. The programmes are set in place, and there's been a lot of change in the last sort of 2 or 3 years with SFA, but when we were doing it, it was sort of mini kickers, school stuff, grassroots, then academy, and there was a big gap. So the performance academy they had was a kind of bridge between the two. But yeah, there is a big massive gap between academy football and grassroots football, and that's kind of where my role just now is really important, and helping bridge that gap, or ways to bridge that gap anyway. But yeah, it was difficult because at a regional level as well, or not a national level. It was just working in Fife, and Fife was a big area, but yeah, we're not going to impact on the big grand scale of things nationally.
What was the pull to Hearts like for you? Because even before you were there, it's an extremely well-known club in the sense of how they progress in the grassroots, and the attention, the big Hearts Foundation and everything, the attention they pay to the local kids. Yeah.
The pool, I didn't have to think twice. The only made me put a little seed of doubt was I was quite happy in terms of the location of my work, because it was again 10-15 minutes from the house, selfishly. I was getting married, so I was close to home. My wife's a teacher in Fife. My hours were kind of, obviously it was Monday to Friday, and I was maybe out, but we were home a lot more, and I knew if I came here I'd maybe not be home as much, just to prove it to be true. But I didn't have to think twice about the job, because Roger Arnott phoned me, who's the academy director at the academy, initially phoned me just about coming in and taking a team, which wasn't possible, and I said no straight away because I needed full-time work. I couldn't work where I was and then come and do stuff at Hearts, because it'd be can't do it. It wouldn't work. So he says, right. I said, I really need something. If you can get me 20 hours plus the academy stuff, I'll come, sort of thing. And I never heard from him for about a month. Phoned me back, says there's a full-time job coming up, and it was initially just meant to be grassroots side of thing. And I was happy with that. I'd be happy with that, and I kind of saw that as an opportunity to go in and maybe do well and progress and do the academy. But it turned out that just a passing comment that I made turned out that I could do both. So the job became a sort of dual role. So I'm look after the club development side of things, working with grassroots clubs, but I'm also head of the children's academy, where I work with the 8s to 12s. And from an outside, you probably think that's quite a massive gap and a wide range of stuff that you need to do. But there's actually a lot of crossover, which I probably didn't realise before coming into the job. The relationships between grassroots clubs and academies across Scotland, and probably the same across the world, is poor, because academy players take the grassroots players and don't give very much back, and that's why the Play the Game programme that I do with the club development is so important, because we're sharing best practice, we're helping coaches, helping players, parents, educating them, doing all that, but we're actually giving something back, which I think is important. And we've now got relationships with clubs that Hearts never had before. I'll not name any clubs, but a club in the last couple of weeks has been in touch with me to get involved, and that club was a sort of no for so many years. Through no fault of my own, or probably the folk at the club just now, it's probably something dating back 10, 15 years. So we're building relationships because they're seeing the good work we're doing. So yeah, I didn't have to think twice about it coming, and as I say, I get the best of both worlds in terms of my passion, the grassroots, and the challenge, the academy environment.
I'm going to say to you, explain the Play the Game programme to anyone who doesn't know about it.
The Play the Game programme is an ever evolving thing. It's hard to define, but essentially what we're trying to do is bring elements of street football back. Street football's dead, in my eyes. It's not completely dead. You still see kids out playing from time to time, but compared to what it was like when I was young, and probably more so for the generation before that, kids were out playing all the time. Whether it be football, whether it be chappie, whether it be Kirby, whether it be building snowmen, whatever it is, kids were out playing all the time because that's all they had to do. But over the years, that's been replaced, and I'm not saying one's right and one's wrong, but over the years, it's been replaced by clubs, after school clubs, centres, football sessions, and it's very much become adult led, and that was kind of the basis of where we want to go. We kind of want to go back to, not completely, I think get a balance between where the kids had ownership on the street, playing the games they wanted to, an environment that they wanted to be in, with people they wanted to be in, varying ages, but they had complete control, whereas now it's become a bit adult. So I kind of get a balance between the two. So Play the Game kind of started from there. My colleague Chalky, Alan White, he's a community manager at Hearts. He developed a programme called Play the Game Street Games, which was a one-off kind of night coach ed kind of event where he just done a ton of games that you would have played back in the day in the streets and put them onto an astro pitch, and that's kind of where it started. So we've got different strands of it. We've got a club programme, we've got expos, which is the best part of the job for me, where we get a ton of kids in for festivals and we just let them play for an hour, and we tell the coaches to zip it, we tell the parents up in the stands, a pound a shout. So we shout anything on the pitch, and it's just about creating a different environment where the kids actually enjoy it. Coming back to that enjoyment word again, we don't think we can give kids complete ownership of the game because the world's changed. They need that parent help and guidance, but I think they're more capable of making decisions or given more opportunities to make their own decisions than probably are. And I think back to when I first started coaching, I cringe because I was talking all the time. I was making sure, with one eye on the parents at the cage, looking in what I'm doing, making sure, because they're paying their money to come along, I was probably trying to impress them rather than actually worry about the kids' development. So I was telling them when to pass, I was telling them when to turn, I was telling them when to get back in, pick up runners, I was having a go at them if they made a mistake. But we play the game, we're trying to get away from that and actually go, right, okay, mistakes are going to happen. We can't control that. They're young players. Can they learn from them? Can we ask them questions rather than tell them what to do? Can we ask them what game they want to play tonight rather than go, right, we're going to play this, this and this? We call them, the word drills in football, I hate it, where it's X passes to, for talking sake, X passes to Y hits a shot and stuff like that. Sounds boring talking about it, I'm boring myself. But the stuff we're trying to do is more game-like stuff you would have played. Maybe not completely what you would have played back in the day, but the element of competition, the enjoyment, the challenge, the team sort of basics of it, and all done within a game environment. So that's what we're trying to do through Play the Game, and we keep evolving it. It's grown arms and legs. The last year's been difficult with lockdown and not really being able to get out to work with clubs. So that has been challenging. So we have to take stuff online, which again is a challenge. Trying to be a football coach online is difficult. But yeah, so there's tons of strands to the programme, and it's one of these programmes I'm really passionate about, as you can probably tell. But it's just about giving kids, just to give them the game back a wee bit. It's about them. It's not about us as coaches. We're there to facilitate and help and guide. And this is at all levels, in my opinion. Even at academy level, that's maybe not to the extreme that we're trying to do with the grassroots side, but it's very much discovery-based learning and play-based learning and making mistakes and learning from them and stuff like that. So yeah, that's Play the Game. It's really enjoyable actually as well. And it almost sounds too simple to be true.
Too good to be true.
Yeah.
Because your passion shines through. What's the reception like from the kids?
Kids love it because if I can put it in a perfect way, and somebody said this to me, I can't remember who said it to me, the kids haven't played football for 5 months, they're not going to come back to you the first session back, oh, can we do some running, or can we do this, that drill. What the kids want to do, they want to play games, because they've not done it. So that's kind of our mindset that we go into training. Kids love playing games. Now, we're not saying rock up to a pitch and put 2 goals down and let them play for an hour. That's an extreme case, but can we do a lot more stuff where it's on that pitch, whether it be 1v1s, whether it be skills into a 1v1 game or competition or relays. They love that sort of thing. Kids love competition. They love racing against each other. They love competing against each other. They love hitting the back of the net. So can we design sessions that are going to let them do that, rather than do stuff that we've seen or looks good on YouTube, or that we've seen another coach do and think, I will do that. We're letting the kids just express themselves through play. Schools are going down that route. I say my wife's a teacher. At the early years of schools, they're now learning through play, especially at nursery, where it's building stuff and making mistakes and failing, and that's how they're learning. So I think we're going down the route of that as well, in terms of learning through play. It's probably the best way to put it. And the kids.
See this evolving, sorry? Or continually evolving?
I think it has already. Obviously, in terms of the heart side of things, it's grown. I think the year before lockdown, we had about 5,000 kids through the programme, and about half of that in terms of coaches as well and parents. So it's grown in terms of what we're doing, but even now the SFA, we spoke earlier about having an impact. Not for 1 second am I saying Play the Game's done this, but the early sort of qualifications that you do with the SFA now at the children's level, it's basically just how to run a session in terms of how to set up a pitch, how to work with a player, how to facilitate a game. Whereas before, you'd go on your first coaching qualification, and I think back to my one, and it was drills, and it was boring stuff, and it was running, and it was this, and it was too structured. And I think for kids, especially at the grassroots level, we need a little bit less structure for them. So it's having an impact on that. We've now hit clubs. Lockdown's been great, because before we could only really, it's not been great, I'll take that off the camera, but it's been great in the sense that we can now expand who we're speaking to. Yeah. Before, my job was South East region, so Edinburgh or whatever I was on the way home to Dunfermline. That would be the clubs we'd be working with, engaging with. Similar to the Expos, it's ones within travelling distance that can come into the Lorient or Tynecastle. But with lockdown, we had coaches from Australia coming in, we had guys from Switzerland, we had guys from England coming on board, people from up north, in Inverness and Aberdeen, that wouldn't get exposed to this, and I now are, and I'm going back to the clubs, and even just speaking about it to the clubs is great. We'll never change everybody's mind, and we don't expect to. We're just giving a different way of doing things, and I think people are slowly starting to see that. So I think it's not going to happen overnight, but I'm starting to see change, especially in Scotland and in this area, at the younger age groups especially. I think that's the key, because if we get them young, and we get the coaches that are the parents really that are working with the kids at that age, letting them play a wee bit more, then it's going to have an impact going forward.
This is fantastic, and as you say, that there is undoubtedly I feel a bit of worry over the last few years that there's been all these claims, grassroots football is dead, and you see all these young clubs and young players fold in, and then, as you said, evident, and then the players they give up. Do you think there's a sea change happening, and we can have a bit more optimism going forward? Grassroots
football's never going to die, because it's the biggest sport in the country, and I'll use, for example, down where I stay, there's a pitch, Pajivi playing fields, that if you drive past it on a Saturday and Sunday morning, there's hundreds of kids playing, whether it be 4-a-sides, 5-a-sides, 7-a-sides, 9s, 11s, whatever it is. There's probably more clubs now than there was 10, 15 years ago. There's more players playing. It's just not getting the exposure that it needs. I'm a big advocate for that, and whenever I speak to somebody about grassroots football, I'm trying to sell it to them. That it should be on Sky Sports News, it should be on the news, it should be on podcasts, it should be on things, because it's a great thing. Not just for the fact that the kids are playing football, the impact it has on the kids, the social side of it. I spoke about earlier on, but that it was a social thing for me. It was never a desire to be a football player, it was just a social thing, enjoyment thing. And you just look at the last year in lockdown, the amount of clubs in the Bonnierig and things like that, doing like food banks and stuff like that, and delivering medicine and stuff. That's the power of football, and that's the brilliant thing. It's not all about getting placed to first teams and turning professional or playing at a decent level, whatever it be. It's the impact on lives that has football, and that can never be forgotten. So grass football is not dead. It just needs that exposure that it deserves. And I think with more exposure, it will get more money, which they need to fund things and fund and make it better and improve facilities that it needs. But it's a great thing, grassroots football. And teams fold, that's part and parcel of football. Teams fold for a variety of reasons. It might be the coach leaves, it might be a couple of kids go to another team and they've not enough players. My nephew's team folded just before lockdown last year because they were going from 7-a-sides to 9-a-sides and they didn't have enough players. But thankfully all the kids got teams again. So just because a team folds, my team folded when I was younger and we just got put into 3 or 4 different teams and that was it. So it's a great thing, grassroots football. People need to be shouting about it, and I don't think enough people are shouting about it because it's a great thing. And the impact it has is unquestionable.
Sort of taking it on the bigger and the larger scheme of things, how, in your role and how community heavy it is in grassroots, and such great promotion, and you see the passion shines through. How do you react when you see, these European Super Leagues and these British Super Leagues and the money, and then you look at it as we're talking about that grassroots football isn't getting the exposure it deserves? How does that make you feel?
Just money, isn't it? It's no football. I think, if anything, the Super League story told you it wasn't anybody with a football brain that was making that decision. It was the guys counting the pound signs and the dollar signs in their staff rooms in America and wherever they're based. It's a harsh truth. Football is becoming a bit about money at the top, especially at the Premier League, and the money the guys are getting paid. I know it's all in proportion to what they're bringing in terms of income, but it's ridiculous. And you think that we're trying to put programmes out there for little cost just to cover costs, and they're probably spending that on wages for one day alone. So it's crazy. At the end of the day, the football was created for fans, and it was created for people. It wasn't created for businessmen. And I think businesses that get involved in football for money reasons, you're in the wrong game. They're just going to waste money, and you've probably seen that over the last 15 years going onwards. But I think the Man United one aside the last weekend, you saw how much it means to people, football, and these clubs especially, how much it means. Even last night with Chelsea getting to the final, the big story was Mason Mount being a young academy graduate, and a good news story. That's what fans want. That's a local kid coming through, getting in the first team. Now he's playing, he scored a goal, getting in the Champions League final. It's the Roy the Rover stuff, isn't it? That's why people fall in love with it. It's not because they want to play against the best teams every week or win the champ. It's just good news stories, and it's the best part of the week, the 90 minutes that's on Saturday afternoon or Tuesday night. It's not about business people and boardrooms, and it's a kind of sideshow, isn't it? The circus.
Just sort of, like I say, the passion that you have, it shines through it, and it's fantastic here, and any sort of platform that you get given is merited. So what sort of, in the final few questions, what sort of hope do you have going forward?
Just getting the message out there, I think. Both from a sense of what we're trying to do in terms of the play the game stuff, in terms of taking a step back and letting kids play, and giving the support to the clubs because they need it, because their parents at the end, the folk running teams are not getting paid, they're volunteers, their parents they've been roped into doing it for some reason, they need help, so we're giving them that help. So from that point I want to help with that. But I think the legacy of the programme really should be about kids staying in football as long as they can. And I said I unfortunately stopped playing properly at about 16. That shouldn't be the case. I hear stories about kids stopping playing football at 9-year-old or 10-year-old and 11-year-old. That's a sin. That shouldn't happen. Football should be for life. We've got walking footballers that come in their 70s and they're chomping a bit, sending emails every other week asking when they can come back. That's what it should be like, yeah. That's what it should be. And it's not going to be the case everyone's going to keep playing till they're 70, but kids shouldn't stop playing at 9 or 10 because one, they can't get a team, or the parents can't afford it. Or I think the legacy for us should be getting kids staying in the game as long as they can, and providing the support to facilitate that to happen, and making it. I've got fond memories of playing football, but making it something that they look back on when they're older, going, remember that. And I only had maybe one or two of the moments, but kids should have a lifetime of memories. This should be the best day of their lives, really. So So I think that for me that's the big thing. Kids have got to stay in the game longer, and we've got to create an environment where they want to be there and come back every week. So yeah, that would probably be my vision, if you like.
Graeme, honestly, I can't thank you enough. I've thoroughly enjoyed this, and I can't describe the passion, and it's so evident. And we need people like you. We're doing it. You can see it's corny, it's cringy, but what you're doing is magnificent. And like I say, any platform that can be given for the game, absolutely, we'd love to.
No, I appreciate it. As I say, it's not about us. It's about the young players at the end of the day, and that's what we want to get that message out there and provide as much help and support as we can. And gives it a bit of exposure as well, which is great. Hopefully means in time people will get involved in the programme and it will help the kids. So it's not about me. It's not about Hearts. It's about the young players. So that's
absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for that.
No problem. Thank you for having me. Thank you.